On a crisp evening, the kind where the night air feels like a soft embrace, Emma found herself standing outside a small cottage tucked away in the heart of the countryside. The world around her was quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant sound of birds settling for the night. She had always dreamed of this moment, imagined it for years, but standing there now, waiting, her heart raced in ways she hadn't anticipated. Inside the cottage, Jack was making preparations, though his mind was anything but focused on the simple tasks at hand. He'd been looking forward to this day for what seemed like an eternity, and now that the moment had finally come, his pulse quickened. He stood by the window, watching the night settle around them, thinking about how everything had led to this point. The connection they shared, the long talks, the quiet moments, had all been building up to this. Their journey was only just beginning, but it felt like destiny had brought them here. As Emma stepped inside, her eyes met his. There was a warmth in his gaze, an unspoken understanding between them that made everything feel right. No words were needed. The air between them was thick with a mutual affection that spoke louder than any conversation could. She smiled softly, her fingers brushing against his as she moved closer. He reached out to gently tuck a strand of her hair behind her ear, a tender touch that sent shivers down her spine. They sat together by the fire, the flickering flames casting a soft glow over their faces. Time seemed to slow as they shared a quiet evening, lost in each other's presence. There was no rush, no urgency, just the comfort of being together. The world outside, with all its worries and distractions, seemed miles away. As the night deepened, Emma found herself drawn closer to Jack. The way he looked at her, with such kindness and adoration, made her heart flutter. She had never felt so seen, so understood. It was as though they had known each other for a lifetime, even though their journey had only just begun. She leaned in, her lips brushing against his in a kiss that was both gentle and full of promise. The kiss deepened, slow and deliberate, as if they were savoring the moment, not wanting it to end. Their connection was electric, but there was no rush. Everything about this night felt sacred, a quiet celebration of the love they had found in each other. They pulled away for a moment, their foreheads touching as they caught their breath, their hearts beating in sync. "Are you sure?" Jack whispered, his voice barely audible, his hands tracing delicate patterns on her skin. Emma nodded, her eyes sparkling with trust and affection. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." They shared another kiss, this time with more urgency, as if their hearts had been waiting for this moment, this promise, for far too long. Slowly, they moved towards the bed, the quiet room now filled with the soft sounds of their shared breaths. But even in the silence, there was a profound understanding between them. They didn't need to speak. The love they had for one another was all-encompassing, a bond that was beyond words, a connection that was felt in the deepest parts of their souls. As they lay together, wrapped in each other's arms, the world outside seemed to fade away. There was only the two of them, this beautiful, gentle love that had woven its way into their lives over time. Their hearts, intertwined and beating as one, whispered the silent promises of a future filled with joy, growth, and endless love. And as the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, they lay there, content in each other's embrace, knowing that this was just the beginning of a lifetime of shared moments, of quiet nights and loud laughter, of love that would only grow stronger with each passing day. As the morning sun began to gently spill its golden light into the room, Emma stirred, her eyes fluttering open to find Jack's face inches from hers. The soft warmth of the early light caressed his features, casting a peaceful glow over him. His expression was serene, his lips slightly curled into a content smile, as if he had been waiting for her to wake up just so he could see her eyes open. She smiled back at him, a soft, sleepy smile that spoke volumes more than words ever could. The moment felt like a dream, fragile and perfect. Her fingers found his, entwining them in a tender gesture. The simple touch sent a wave of warmth through her, grounding her in the quiet, beautiful reality of this moment. Jack shifted, pulling her gently closer, his embrace as natural as breathing. He kissed her forehead, a gesture that was both protective and full of love, and they stayed there, in the quiet cocoon of the morning, for what felt like an eternity. "Good morning," he whispered, his voice low and husky from sleep. "Good morning," she replied softly, her voice still thick with the remnants of the peaceful night. The world outside seemed to be waking up with them, the birds outside chirping and the soft rustle of trees whispering in the gentle breeze. But inside, in that moment, it felt as if time had stopped, as though everything that mattered was right there in that room, in that bed, with nothing but their love surrounding them. They spent the morning in quiet conversation, learning more about one another, sharing dreams and small moments of vulnerability that only deepened the connection they had forged. They spoke of hopes for the future, of the things they wanted to accomplish, and of the places they wished to go together. But even in those conversations, there was an underlying understanding that this journey was more about the quiet, simple moments, the ones that didn't need to be planned or rushed. They didn't need grand gestures or promises. The bond between them was enough. It was something that grew in the spaces between words, in the soft touches, in the shared laughter, and in the quiet understanding that they had found something rare and beautiful in each other. By the time they rose from the bed, the sun had climbed higher, casting a warm glow over everything. They ventured outside, hand in hand, as the world seemed to wake up around them. The scent of blooming flowers filled the air, and the soft breeze whispered through the trees. Jack looked at Emma, and she caught the glance, seeing the same feeling mirrored in his eyes, the same sense of peace, of contentment. As they walked through the fields, their footsteps slow and unhurried, Emma felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over her. She had spent so long wondering if she would ever find this kind of love, something pure and simple, yet so profound. And now that she had found it, she couldn't imagine her life without Jack in it. Jack, too, felt the same. As they walked side by side, he marveled at how life had led him here, to this moment, to Emma. He never expected love to come like this, gentle and true, building over time into something deeper than he could have imagined. There were no grand declarations or dramatic gestures between them. Instead, there was a quiet understanding, a steady heartbeat that mirrored his own. It was perfect in its simplicity. Later that evening, as the sky turned a deep shade of purple and the stars began to twinkle above, they found themselves sitting outside under a blanket of stars. The fire crackled beside them, its warmth contrasting with the cool evening air. Jack's arm was draped around Emma, and she rested her head against his shoulder, content and peaceful. In the stillness, there was a shared sense of wonder, of having found something rare. They didn't need to speak. Everything they felt for each other was expressed in the soft touch of their hands, the closeness they shared, and the quiet joy that lingered between them. It was the kind of love that didn't need to be rushed or forced. It was gentle, like the evening breeze, and yet it was constant, unwavering, like the stars overhead. They had found something real, something lasting, and though they didn't know what the future held, they knew they would face it together, hand in hand, heart in heart. As the days passed, Emma and Jack's connection deepened even further. What had begun as a slow, almost hesitant exploration of each other's hearts had now blossomed into something undeniable and enduring. Every glance, every touch, seemed to echo the unspoken promises they had made to one another in the quiet of that first night. Their love was a steady flame, burning brighter with each passing day, as they created memories that would stay with them forever. They spent their days exploring the countryside, walking through sun-dappled forests, and sitting by the riverside, watching the water flow gently by. They talked about everything and nothing, about books they loved, places they dreamed of visiting, childhood memories, and the little things that made them who they were. Every conversation, every laugh, added another layer to their bond. It felt as if they were both discovering pieces of themselves they hadn't known existed, pieces that were only brought to life through the other's love. One evening, as they watched the sun dip below the horizon, Jack turned to Emma, his eyes soft yet filled with something deep and knowing. "I never imagined this," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I always thought I'd have to search for something like this, something real. But with you, it's like, I don't need to search anymore. I've found it." Emma looked at him, her heart swelling. She had never felt so loved, so completely understood. She had always known there was something special about him, something that made her feel safe, seen, and cherished. But hearing him say those words made it feel like everything had fallen perfectly into place. "I feel the same way," she replied, her voice soft but filled with emotion. "With you, I've found my home. I never knew love could be like this." They sat in comfortable silence, letting the weight of those words settle between them. It wasn't the kind of love that needed grand declarations or constant excitement. It was a kind that grew slowly, like the trees in the forest around them, deeply rooted and steady. The kind that thrived in the quiet moments, in the simple acts of kindness and the unspoken understanding that came with truly knowing someone. As time went on, they found themselves falling more in love each day. Their first night together had been the beginning, but it was only the start of a beautiful journey. Their love wasn't defined by the passion of that initial connection, though that was certainly part of it. No, it was defined by the way they supported one another, the way they showed up for each other through the good times and the difficult ones. There were still moments of uncertainty, moments where life's challenges would test their bond, but each time they faced it together, hand in hand. The love they shared had built a foundation strong enough to weather anything. They learned to navigate the ups and downs with patience and grace, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could face whatever came their way. One night, as the first snow of winter began to fall, they sat by the fire once more, wrapped in each other's arms. The world outside was quiet and peaceful, the snowflakes falling gently from the sky like tiny stars. Emma snuggled closer to Jack, her heart full of contentment. "You know," she whispered, "I never believed in love like this until I found you." Jack kissed the top of her head, his voice low and tender. "And I never knew love could be so simple, so pure, until I found you." The warmth between them was all-encompassing, filling the room with a quiet, undeniable truth. They had found something extraordinary, something that would last for a lifetime. Their love was the kind that transcended the fleeting moments, the ups and downs of life. It was constant, unshakable. And as they sat there in the stillness of the evening, they knew that no matter where life took them, they would always have this love to guide them. The connection they shared was unbreakable, and together, they were ready to embrace whatever the future held, knowing that as long as they had each other, they had everything they needed